It was a warm afternoon in late May of 2009, in a small patch of farmland just outside Lynchburg, Virginia. The scent of honeysuckle drifted in from the fields, but inside the modest two-story home on Ash Hill Road, the air felt colder than usual. Emily stood in the kitchen, wiping sweat from her brow. At nearly 400 pounds, even the smallest tasks left her exhausted. Her swollen ankles ached, and the oversized floral dress she wore clung to her back. She'd spent the last hour baking Travis's favorite pecan pie from scratch, hoping, once again, it might win him over. Travis didn't even look up from his phone when she placed the pie on the table. "Smells like diabetes," he muttered. Emily flinched, forcing a weak smile. "I thought it might be nice, since your family's coming over tonight." He rolled his eyes. "They're coming to discuss real estate and money, Emily, not to see you play housewife." Her heart sank. She knew she wasn't what he wanted. Not anymore. But after 8 years of marriage, something in her still held on to the idea that she mattered to him. That maybe, if she lost the weight, he might come back to her. But the truth had long been clear in the way he looked at her. Or didn't. That evening, the house filled with voices. Travis's father, his sister, and a few uncles gathered around the living room to talk about the old family farm. The one his grandfather left behind just outside Bedford. Emily lingered in the hallway, listening. She remembered the stories Travis used to tell her about that land. How he spent summers riding the tractor, barefoot, learning the value of hard work, as his grandfather used to say. Someone chuckled. "You remember that time Travis brought Emily out to the farm?" his sister said. "We thought the porch was going to collapse." Laughter filled the room. Emily froze. "She couldn't even walk up the hill," one of the uncles added. "Had to stop halfway, gasping like a fish." Travis didn't defend her. He just laughed louder than anyone. Emily turned and went upstairs, her chest tight. In the mirror, she barely recognized herself. Her cheeks were puffy, her eyes dull, her hands trembled as she gripped the sink. That night, after everyone had left, she asked him quietly, "Do you ever feel proud of me?" Travis looked at her with a mix of disgust and pity. "Emily, I can't be proud of someone who gave up on herself." Those words didn't just cut her, they killed something inside her. At exactly 2:23 in the morning, as she sat alone on the edge of the bathtub, Emily made a decision. She was done begging for love, done shrinking her voice while her body grew, done accepting a life that had no prosperity, no health, no real values. She would change everything. And one day, she would return. Not to win him back, but to buy back her own worth, with money, with success, with strength, and maybe, just maybe, to own the very land they laughed at her on. The sun peeked over the hills of Virginia at exactly 6:42 that morning. The sky burned with streaks of orange and soft pink as Emily stood alone on the porch, holding a mug of coffee that had long since gone cold. The breeze brushed against her face, and for the first time in years, she didn't feel numb. She felt awake. Her suitcase was already packed. Just 2 bags, one with clothes, the other filled with journals, recipes, and the letter from her late mother. That letter had been untouched for nearly 5 years, sealed in the back of her nightstand drawer. Now, it rested on top of everything else. She didn't say goodbye to Travis. Didn't need to. He had made it clear for years that she was invisible. Leaving without a word felt more powerful than any fight. She walked out of that house on Ash Hill Road without looking back, her feet heavy but her spirit somehow lighter. By noon, she was 3 towns over, sitting in a parking lot outside a community gym that smelled like rubber mats and faded hope. The sign above the door read, "Strong Starts," in chipped white paint. Emily stared at it for a long time, her heart pounding. She had never stepped foot in a gym before, not once in her life. Inside, a woman named Rachel greeted her with a warm smile that didn't flinch when she saw Emily's size. "You're here," Rachel said simply, handing her a clipboard. "That's the hardest part." The first workout nearly broke her. 5 minutes on the treadmill left her gasping, knees trembling, face soaked in sweat. But something happened that day. No one laughed. No one stared. No one called her names. Rachel stood beside her and said, "It's not about how fast you go, it's about showing up again tomorrow." And Emily did. Every day after work, every morning she had off, she came back. She started walking, then jogging, then lifting light weights. Her body hurt in places she didn't know existed, but with each drop of sweat, it felt like she was scrubbing away years of shame. She changed what she ate. Gone were the processed meals and secret late-night binges. She learned about nutrients, about metabolism, about how food could fuel or destroy her health. She cooked for herself with purpose now, not out of guilt or desperation. The scale didn't move at first, but she stopped measuring progress in pounds. She measured it in energy, in how many stairs she could climb, in how she could finally tie her own shoes without losing breath. By the 3rd month, she had dropped 22 pounds, then 36, then 58. But something bigger shifted inside her, her sense of self-worth. She got a new job working at a local accounting office. She learned how to budget, how to save, how to grow money instead of wasting it. For the first time, she had goals. Prosperity was no longer a dream. It was a plan. She enrolled in night classes for business management at the community college. She started attending weekend farmers markets, asking questions about land ownership and agricultural value. She wasn't just surviving anymore. She was building something. Her body was changing. Her finances were changing. Her values were solidifying. And deep in her heart, one thought kept echoing. One day, I'll buy that farm. Not because she needed it, but because she could. Because she would. And with every drop of sweat, every dollar saved, every mile walked, she was rewriting her story, not with revenge in mind, but with power, peace, and undeniable wealth. By the spring of 2010, just under 1 year after leaving Travis, Emily had lost 74 pounds. Her cheeks looked slimmer, her eyes brighter. She still had a long way to go, but her reflection no longer haunted her. It motivated her. Lynchburg hadn't changed. The same slow drawl at gas stations, the same quiet fields and rusted mailboxes. But Emily had changed in every possible way. She now kept a whiteboard in her tiny apartment, tracking her progress with color-coded markers. Not just pounds lost, but money saved, classes completed, meals prepped. Every mark was a reminder that prosperity came from consistency, not perfection. She made just over $15 an hour at the accounting office, but she treated every paycheck like it mattered. She cut expenses, stopped impulse spending, and opened her first savings account. Slowly but surely, wealth became more than just a fantasy. It became her safety net, her backup plan, her future. One Friday evening in April, Emily ran into someone she hadn't seen in over a year. Jenny Michaels, Travis's ex-girlfriend before her. Jenny blinked at her in the grocery store parking lot. "Emily?" she asked, holding a bag of frozen peas. Emily nodded, smiling politely. Jenny looked her up and down. "Wow, you look different." "Healthier," Emily said gently. "I've been working on my health." Jenny laughed. "Travis must be kicking himself." Emily shrugged. "He already did enough of that for both of us." It wasn't meant to be sharp, but there was truth in her tone, and Jenny seemed to hear it. "You look good, Emily. Really good. Like you're doing something that matters." Emily thanked her and walked away, not because she felt better than Jenny, but because she didn't need anyone's validation anymore. Not from the past. Not from the people who once overlooked her. She had her own sense of value now. Real value. Back at home that night, she pulled out the notebook where she'd written all her goals in shaky handwriting the day after she left Travis. One stood out. Buy the farm. She had meant it metaphorically when she wrote it. But now? Now it felt real. A few weeks later, while eating a spinach and chicken salad at her kitchen table, Emily got a call from Rachel, her trainer. "There's a real estate auction happening in Bedford in June, a couple of acres near the old Thompson place. You might want to look." Emily's heart skipped. That was the land, the same area Travis's grandfather used to own. She knew it because he talked about it every Thanksgiving like it was holy ground. She didn't say anything at first. She just wrote the date on the whiteboard. June 12th, 2010. She circled it in red. There were still 68 pounds to lose to hit her goal. She had only saved about $9,000. Nowhere near enough to win a bid on that much land. But for Emily, it was never just about money. It was about freedom. About standing in the place where she once felt small and feeling powerful. So she doubled down. She took on freelance bookkeeping gigs at night. She meal prepped with precision. She stopped every emotional purchase, every excuse, every unnecessary expense. Every dollar became a building block. Every pound lost, a victory. Her body continued to transform. Her hair shone. Her skin cleared. People in town began to whisper, not with pity, but with respect. They called her the woman who got out, the one who didn't just survive humiliation. She turned it into wealth, into health, into purpose. And as the calendar crept closer to June, Emily could feel it. The comeback wasn't just coming. It had already begun. It was Saturday morning, June 12th, 2010. The sun rose sharp and golden over the hills of Bedford, casting long shadows over the grass that hadn't been trimmed in weeks. Emily stood quietly by the wooden fence near the auction tent, her arms crossed over a fitted denim jacket that actually hugged her new shape. She had lost 113 pounds. That number meant something. Not just physically, but mentally. It was the exact number Travis used to joke about when he'd say, "You'd have to lose 100 pounds just to look average." She had gone beyond that, and she still wasn't done. She had saved nearly $17,000, not enough to compete with developers or cattlemen, but enough to make a statement. The air smelled like dust and old tobacco. A handful of men stood under the tent, drinking coffee out of styrofoam cups, chatting about corn prices and property taxes. She recognized one of them instantly. Travis. He hadn't seen her yet. He wore a clean white button-up shirt and cowboy boots, acting like the king of the land. She watched him laugh, his hand resting on the shoulder of some local contractor, like the whole town still revolved around his family name. But something in his posture looked different. He was thicker now, a little more tired around the eyes. His hair had started to thin. Emily stepped forward. The auctioneer cleared his throat and tapped the mic. "We'll begin with parcel number 1. 10 acres, including access to the west pasture and the original well from the Thompson homestead." Emily raised her hand when the starting bid was called. Travis turned. He didn't recognize her at first. But then he did. And his mouth opened slightly. He blinked twice, like he couldn't process what he was looking at. Emily didn't flinch. She kept her hand raised. The bidding started low, $2,500, then $4,000, then $6,500. Emily raised her number again. $7,000. Travis squinted. "Emily?" She nodded once. He looked stunned. "What the hell are you doing here?" "Same as you," she said softly. "Looking for opportunity." His jaw tensed. "This is family land." "Was," she said. "It's open now. Anyone with the money and the values to respect it can own it." That word, money, hit like a slap, because Emily had it now. She had earned every dollar with sweat, sacrifice, and discipline. No handouts, no shortcuts, just grit. The bidding rose. 8,000, 9. 10,000, Emily said, her voice clear. Travis looked shaken. "You can't be serious." But she was. This wasn't about revenge. It was about prosperity. About showing herself that she could walk into the very place she was once mocked and stand tall. At 10,500, a man in the back folded. The auctioneer waited. "Going once?" Travis hesitated, then called out, 11,000. Emily didn't blink. 12. Silence. Long, aching silence. The auctioneer slammed the gavel. "Sold!" People turned to stare. A few whispered. Travis didn't say another word. He looked like someone had just pulled the rug from under him. Emily walked past him without pause. Her boots touched the gravel, the same path where she once struggled to breathe. Now she didn't even break a sweat. She signed the paperwork under her full name, Emily Renee Thompson. Her maiden name. The name she had buried under years of shame, but now wore like a badge of honor. As she stepped back outside, the wind lifted her hair, and the sun hit her skin just right. It felt like the universe was handing her something back she never thought she'd feel again. Power. And the sweetest kind of wealth. The kind you build, not borrow. She wasn't done yet. But that day, that was her first true victory. The next morning, Sunday the 13th of June, 2010, the land felt different. Emily stood in the middle of her new property. 10 full acres of overgrown fields, crooked fence posts, and an old barn that looked like it might fall if you sneezed too close to it. The air smelled like soil and sun. No traffic sounds, just wind rustling through the trees and a couple of crows overhead, fighting over a dead squirrel on the gravel road. She took a deep breath and knelt down, scooping a handful of earth into her palm. It was dry, cracked, neglected just like she'd been. But beneath the surface, it was still rich, still full of promise, just needed the right hands. "I'm not here for revenge," she whispered to herself. "I'm here to build." That day, Emily started with what she had: a rake, a borrowed wheelbarrow, some gloves too big for her smaller hands, no hired crews, no money for machines, just her back, her breath, and the kind of grit only humiliation could teach. Her days began before sunrise. She drank black coffee on the porch, boots laced, ponytail tight. By 7 o'clock, she was clearing weeds, hauling broken lumber, scrubbing years of filth out of the barn. She worked alone, but she never felt lonely. For the first time, her work had real meaning, the kind of values money couldn't fake. By July, she had lost 126 pounds. Her doctor was amazed, not just by the number but by her blood work. Perfect cholesterol, normal blood pressure, strong heart. He called her a walking miracle. But Emily didn't believe in miracles. She believed in effort, in health, in taking back control one decision at a time. Every evening she sat on the porch and wrote in her journal thoughts, expenses, what she ate, what she learned. She studied soil quality, crop rotation, solar installation for small barns. She read books about sustainable farming and small business tax benefits. She wasn't just rebuilding her life. She was laying the groundwork for a prosperous future. Word got around fast in Bedford. People whispered about the Thompson girl who came back and bought up the land her ex-husband lost. Farmers tipped their hats when she passed. Store clerks offered free coffee. The same folks who once looked past her now saw her for who she really was. A woman with wealth of character, a backbone made of steel, and the fire to match. One evening, around 6:30, a beat-up truck pulled onto the gravel drive. Emily recognized it instantly. Travis stepped out. He looked smaller somehow, or maybe she just looked bigger, not in body, but in presence. He stared at the barn, the cleared land, the patches of tilled soil. "You really did it," he said. Emily leaned against the porch rail, arms crossed. "Was there ever a doubt?" He nodded slowly. "You look strong." "I am." He took a step closer. "You always were, I just didn't see it," she cut in, "or didn't want to." Travis shoved his hands in his pockets. "I was wrong, Emily." She nodded. "Yeah, you were." Silence stretched between them. "I was wondering if you needed help," he offered. Emily raised an eyebrow. "I've got all I need." And it was true. She had money in the bank, a small business license in process. Her health was solid, her goals even clearer. She didn't need a man, especially not one who only noticed her after the weight came off. Travis looked down, then back up at her. "You've changed." "No, Travis," she said, her voice calm. "I just became who I always was. You're the one who couldn't see past 400 pounds to find her." He nodded, eyes heavy. As he turned to leave, Emily didn't feel smug. She felt free. This wasn't revenge. This was redemption. And every step forward now? It was for her, her farm, her prosperity, her future. The roots she was planting weren't just in the dirt. They were in her soul. By the 1st of September, 2010, the old barn had a fresh coat of white paint, the fencing had been patched, and Emily had officially planted her first garden bed. Tomatoes, sweet corn, collard greens, and rosemary lined the soft rows of soil she'd turned with her own hands. It wasn't much, but it was hers. The farmhouse still needed a new roof, and the plumbing groaned like a tired old man. But every inch of the place whispered purpose. There was no more silence heavy with shame, no more holding her breath to avoid conflict, just the gentle creak of porch boards beneath her boots, the distant cluck of hens she bought from a neighbor for $10, and the soft hum of something she hadn't felt in years. Peace. Every dollar she spent now had a plan. Every item she bought had to fit her new life, a life built on real values, not just appearances. She tracked every cent. No more emotional spending. No more takeout binges. She cooked fresh, whole meals. Her body responded, shedding the last few stubborn pounds. By mid-month, she had lost a total of 145 pounds. That number wasn't just physical. It was the weight of shame, of years of being overlooked, underestimated, ridiculed. It was the number that turned into wealth, health, and freedom. One morning, around 7:15, Emily pulled into the local co-op, her old truck rattling into the gravel lot. She stepped out in worn jeans and a tucked-in flannel, holding a crate of hand-picked produce. The guy behind the register blinked when he saw her. "You Emily Thompson?" "I am," she said, setting the crate down. "We've had folks asking about your tomatoes. You looking to sell more next week?" She smiled. "Sure am. I've got more coming in by Thursday." He nodded. "You got good soil out there." Emily chuckled. "Took a little work, but it's worth it." Back home, she updated her ledger. Her small produce sales had earned her $172 that week. Nothing massive. But it felt like gold. It was honest money, built by her hands, rooted in something real. That afternoon, as the sky turned lavender, she received a letter in the mail. Her business license had been approved. She stood on her porch, reading it twice, tears catching in the corner of her eyes. Thompson Roots Farm, it read. Her name, her land, her future. Emily called Rachel that night, her voice full of quiet joy. "Guess who's officially a small business owner?" Rachel screamed on the other end. "I'm so proud of you. You did it, Em." "I'm just getting started." She meant it. This wasn't the end of her story. It was the middle. But unlike before, this chapter was full of prosperity, independence, and something even rarer. Hope. Her phone buzzed again later that evening. It was a text from Travis. "Hey, just wanted to say you look incredible, and I've been thinking a lot lately. About us." Emily stared at it for a long moment, then locked her phone and set it face down on the table. She had no interest in going back to what broke her. She was building something new, something lasting. The next morning, she placed a small hand-painted sign at the edge of her land. Fresh produce, homegrown, honest work. Beneath it, in smaller letters, built from the ground up. It was Friday, October 15th, 2010, when Emily found herself standing on stage at the local agricultural fair, holding a blue ribbon in one hand and a plaque in the other. The judges had just named Thompson Roots Farm the most promising new small operation in Bedford County. The applause wasn't roaring, but it was warm and real. A few folks clapped with pride, others out of quiet admiration. Emily's heart thudded against her chest, not out of nerves, but disbelief. Less than 2 years ago, she'd been hiding in oversized sweaters, avoiding mirrors, drowning under 400 pounds and a marriage built on shame. Now, she stood tall, 145 pounds lighter, full of purpose and richer than she'd ever been. Not just in money, but in self-worth, in values, in health, in strength. After the event, she set up her little booth by the farmer's row, selling jars of homemade tomato jam, fresh herbs, and small baskets of greens. Kids ran around with pumpkin lollipops. Old couples pushed carts. People stopped to chat, to smile, to ask about her land and her crops. She felt seen. Just before sunset, a familiar voice cut through the soft buzz of the crowd. "Emily?" She turned slowly. It was Travis. He looked tired. His shirt was wrinkled, his boots scuffed. His eyes landed on the Thompson Roots sign, then on the award plaque propped up on her table. "I saw the article in the paper," he said. "Didn't believe it till I saw you up there." Emily wiped her hands on a towel and stood straight. "Well, believe it. This is my farm. My work." He nodded, eyes down. "You look incredible." "I feel incredible," she replied. "Finally." Travis looked around, fidgeting. "I wanted to say I'm sorry for how I treated you. I was cruel. I see that now." Emily studied him, the man who once tore her down without a second thought, who mocked her weight in front of family, who let her rot in a house that never felt like home. "I'm not angry anymore, Travis," she said softly. "I just don't carry your guilt." He swallowed hard. "I don't expect forgiveness. I saw what you built. I see the prosperity in your life now, and I guess I wanted to know how you did it." Emily paused, then smiled, not out of spite, but peace. "I stopped letting people decide my worth. I invested in myself. I learned that wealth isn't just about cash. It's about owning your time, your peace, your future. And I started treating my body like it mattered." Travis stared at her like he was looking at a ghost. "You ever think about us?" "No," she said. "Not anymore." The silence that followed wasn't bitter, just final. She reached under the table, grabbed a jar of jam, and handed it to him. "Here, from my land." He took it, hands shaking a little. Then he left, just like that. Emily didn't watch him walk away. She turned back to her booth, smiled at the next customer, and rang up a sale. $3. 3 small jars. But it felt like pure gold. That night, she sat on her porch under a full Virginia moon, her body sore from the long day, her spirit full. The lights on the barn flickered softly. The chickens were asleep. The wind carried the faint scent of rosemary and earth. This was her reward. Not the ribbon, not the apology, but the life she built, brick by brick, breath by breath. Tomorrow she'd plant new seeds. But tonight, she just sat there and finally let herself feel the richness of the life she had grown. It was early morning, Sunday, November 7th, 2010. The Virginia air had turned crisp, with leaves rustling in golden waves across the backfield. Emily stood at the edge of her land, boots sunk into damp soil, breath fogging in the cool autumn light. The sky was wide open, and so was her future. Nearly 2 years ago, she had left this town carrying close to 400 pounds of weight, most of it pain. She returned with 145 pounds shed, not just from her body, but from her soul. Shame had been replaced by strength, bitterness by balance, and silence by her own steady voice. Now Thompson Roots Farm was thriving. She had built a small greenhouse on the eastern side of the lot. Chickens laid daily eggs. Her produce sold out every Saturday. She partnered with 2 local restaurants, one of which just added Thompson greens to their menu. Her money wasn't just steady, it was growing. She had savings, investments, long-term goals, wealth in every sense of the word. Not just the kind you spend, but the kind you stand on. That morning, a woman from the county education board stopped by. Her name was Sandra, and she'd heard about Emily's farm through a school garden program. "We're looking for someone to teach basic food sustainability to some high schoolers," Sandra said, sipping coffee from a thermos. "Nothing fancy, just real talk about health, nutrition, soil, and life skills. Thought of you." Emily blinked, surprised. "You think I'd be a good fit?" Sandra smiled. "You didn't just build a farm, Emily. You built a life of values. These kids need to see that kind of grit, that kind of prosperity." She agreed without hesitation. By Thanksgiving, she was leading her first Saturday class, with 6 teenagers planting kale in a raised bed while she talked to them about growing your own food and your own self-worth. "You don't need to come from money to create something meaningful," she told them. "You just need to decide you're worth fighting for." They listened. Some nodded, some didn't. But she could see it in their eyes. Something was clicking. Back at home that evening, Emily lit a single candle in her kitchen window. She sat down to a small dinner. Roasted root veggies, chicken with lemon, and her now famous rosemary cornbread. Alone, but never lonely. She took a bite, closed her eyes, and smiled. Not because it tasted good, though it did, but because everything around her had come from her own hands. Her farm, her peace, her strength. No one had handed it to her. She had earned it, pound by pound, day by day, heartbreak by healing. Later that night, as the wind howled softly outside, Emily pulled out the notebook where she'd scribbled her first list of goals. She flipped to the last page and wrote, "I did it, and I'm still going." She closed it and placed it back on the shelf, not to forget the past, but to honor it. Because the woman who was once mocked, dismissed, and humiliated in front of strangers had become a symbol of what's possible when you refuse to stay small. And maybe, just maybe, she didn't just buy back a farm that once defined her worth. She planted something deeper, something that would outlast the laughter, grow beyond the pain, and stand tall, like her. And you? Have you ever gone through something like this? Drop your story in the comments. I really want to know what you think.